Hello, welcome or welcome back. Today we're in for a fun ride. This video is probably going to be a little bit longer than some of the other ones I've made because today we're talking about the concept of being cringe, or more specifically, my opinions on what we deem cringe and how being cringe is actually a good thing. So I actually have taken notes for this one. I don't write scripts because this is generally just off the cuff. But for this, I have taken notes because it's something I've been thinking about for quite a while now. But what started the idea of me like making a video about it was the other day my boyfriend asked, like, what's the cringiest thing I've ever done? And so that really got us talking about like what both of us consider cringe in the first place, because cringe is very subjective. If you ask like 10 people what they consider cringy, you're going to get different answers. But a very simple, just like explanation of cringe would be something that is embarrassing, awkward, or basically just like not cool. Again, cool is also subjective. But something I've really noticed with things that are cringe is like we typically don't look at ourselves as cringe. Like we might reflect on things that we've done in the past and say like, oh, that was cringy. But I think for the most part, like being cringy or like being called, like someone calls you yourself cringe, it's usually other people are judging you based on like who you are as a person or something that you've done. And then I think we take that on from other people, and then like we start to almost like surveil ourselves. Like we have this really like hypervigilance about like how we're perceived by other people because they have called us cringe. And now we're like, obsessing over our demeanor, what we say, how we look, what we're interested in even. So yeah, like obviously that's a very loaded thing to unpack, which I'm going to try and do somewhat in this video. So my boyfriend asked me that, which is kind of what prompted me to think about this a little deeper. And then like on the same day, maybe like a couple hours later, I was just scrolling through, Twitter as you do, wasting time. And I saw that there was a tweet somebody had made about this librarian who quit his job, largely because of just like online harassment. The librarian's name is Michael Threets. I will preface this by saying I don't know anything about him outside of just like I did go on his TikTok. I'll have that linked below if you guys want to check out his videos, which I think you should. But he's a librarian and he's really passionate about like getting people into the library, both children and adults. He's done some great work with just, kind of allowing people to appreciate the library for what it is, try to get funding for libraries, and just like make the library, a fun, welcoming place. And seemed like he was very excited to like share his knowledge. He wanted to get more people interested in reading, um, and just like, sharing knowledge. Like that was like really what his main focus, again, from the TikToks I've seen, that's what it seemed to be. But essentially what happened is that a few people started to basically say that he was weird or strange or cringe. Somebody even said that he had like a dark energy or something. Like they basically just started tearing into this guy who again wasn't really doing anything except being excited about his job and being happy to share his like knowledge and experience with other people online. Um so basically once I saw that, I was like, yeah, I kind of have to talk about this because it's something that's again bugged me for a long time. Is this idea that being passionate about something and having enthusiasm in and of itself is cringe. It's gone beyond like, oh, you're embarrassing or you're awkward. It's just like, I've noticed that anyone who is very interested in something, and I'll say particularly like a niche subject, right? Because obviously if you're like really into fashion or makeup or whatever, people tend to not really call you cringe because those are like, I don't know, socially acceptable hobbies for certain people to have. Um, but when you're really into something that's like very niche or very sometimes maybe even intellectual, but basically just anything that's not like a publicly approved thing for you to be interested in, whether it's because of your gender, your sexuality, your race, your age, like there for whatever reason you are not supposed to be into this. I've noticed that people really seem to have a hard time with that. Like if you are into something and you want to share that with somebody else, that is cringy. Like you should not, be happy about your career or the hobbies that you have, apparently. Um, and so I just like to say, being your full authentic self is not cringy. that might be a hot take, I guess, but being who you are as a person is not cringy. And of course, I say this as somebody who is neurodivergent, who has been, when like growing up, especially in school, been made to feel bad or wrong for like being who I am, just for like having interest outside of what everybody else has. Being yourself is not cringy. I don't care, like, and this isn't to say that like everybody has to like everything that you do or whatever, but like there's a difference between just saying like, yeah, I'm not into what you're into, I'm not vibing with that, and then, demeaning somebody for having, I don't know, the audacity to be a happy person who just wants to like enjoy life. Um so yeah, I being your authentic self isn't cringy. Being passionate about things is not cringy. Being enthusiastic is not cringy. Um and to me, what really sticks for me about this whole thing is just that, shame, I will say cringe and shame kind of go hand in hand. Because if you're told that you are embarrassing, if you're told that you are awkward, if you are laughed at and demeaned for something that you see as like, you know, part of who you are in the sense that like this is what brings you joy, the obvious natural reaction for that is shame. You're ashamed now of who you are, you're ashamed of what you like. Um, and honestly, shame is the quickest way to hinder your own growth, by making yourself small, which is by basically hiding what you're into, hiding who you really are, trying to make yourself as palatable to other people, as invisible to other people as possible, is not a good way to live. Making yourself fit into this like box that's uncomfortable, that's not a way to live your life. Um, and I don't think that we should be encouraging this like toxic behavior of just dogpiling on people who you just for whatever reason think are weird. It's like I don't and yeah, this is already getting it's like I don't care if you think I'm weird. I don't care if you think somebody else is weird. That has no bearing, on who I am. You can think I'm weird all you want. You can think other people are weird all you want. Um I guess at the end of the day, what I really wish people understood is that you don't have to like everyone and you don't have to like everything. But if it's not harming you, if this person isn't causing you any like mental health, like stress or physical harm or whatever, like just get over it. Not everything is for everyone. If for some reasons seeing this guy be really excited about the library is cringy to you and like you don't like it, you can very easily hide him off your TikTok feed and you never have to see this guy again. It's that simple. Have I encountered content that I feel like is not interesting to me? Or maybe I just didn't understand. Of course, I'm a human. Everybody has that. But do I then turn around and say, like, this person is strange and bizarre for being into, like, I don't know, welding so much? No. I love to see people be passionate about things. I don't know. I think that's something that we as a culture have kind of lost too, like this excitement about, being alive and being able to do things that bring us joy. That's really cool. And I like that people are able to go online and share those experiences. That's nice. So yeah, it's just goes back to just, yeah, like that bullying mentality. It's very childish, very juvenile, very high school to me. To see adults, like grown adults, just bully other adults because they feel like, well, you're straight. And it's just like, haven't we gotten past this? Like, you're old enough to understand that, like, there are millions of different people in the world, and they're not always going to be people that you maybe get along with or necessarily understand. But like, the least you can do is just be kind. Um, it's not hard to be a nice person. Like, it really isn't. And I always see, like, with this whole librarian situation, like, people are saying, well, he needs to have a thicker skin if he's going to be online. And it's just like, this goes beyond having a thick skin. Okay. This goes beyond being online and realizing that, yeah, there are always going to be trolls. There are always going to be people who are trying to get a rise at you and trying to be rude. Like, of course. But when it becomes this, like, I don't know, almost just like public, like, jeering session where it's just like one person starts and then everyone just starts dogpiling on you for, again, just being a person in the world and making TikToks about like getting a library card and like his day to day life at this is a librarian. Like he's getting dog on for just being himself. And like you guys are saying, get a thicker skin. Like, what is he supposed to do at that point? Like, this is who he is. Um, and just to touch on something else that I really want to bring up since we're kind of using this librarian example. What I noticed too, and this is me speaking as someone who's autistic, a lot of people were going after him because of his mannerisms, and that really made me mad because when you watch the videos, like yes, he's excited, but like he also you can tell, and I'm not this is not me self-diagnosing because that's another thing I have a problem with, but I think some of his mannerisms and behaviors were not neurotypical, let's just say, not like what the average person is maybe used to seeing. Um, and that seemed to be what a lot of people were latching on to. It's just like, oh, he was like staring too much, or he was like doing too many hand gestures. And it's just like, one, you don't know this guy. Like, for again, that's why I said I'm not self diagnosed. I'm not gonna, not self diagnosing. I'm not diagnosing him. Like, this is a person I've never met. Again, I've watched a couple of his videos. I think they're cool. He seems like a great person. Um, but again, I don't know him. None of you guys know him. And it's just like, for you to like pick these things like that he's doing that again seem to be natural to him. It's not like I think he's like putting on an act. Like, this is his authentic self from what I can see. And for people to say like, "Oh, that's strange or weird. You're a bad person," even like he had like nefarious intentions or something, and it's just like, how are you getting that on like a minute long TikTok video of this guy being like, "Yeah, get a library card." Again, it's just this idea that like if what you think is cringe, how do I want to phrase this? It's like cringe has almost become synonymous with like bad or like evil almost. Like if you're cringy, then that means there must be something like wrong with you. And then therefore, if there's something wrong with you, that means you need to be like treated like garbage. You know, it's kind of that progression of thought. That is what I'm seeing online. Um, so yeah, and I guess for me also like seeing how people say like, oh, things are cringy, and it's just like people seem to want to be miserable. And again, this is not uncommon. I'm sure you guys have seen many videos where people say like people just seem, especially in this like post 2020 like world that we're living in, everyone seems to just everyone's stressed, everyone's having a hard time, things are expensive, and so people are just like lashing out and taking it out on people that they feel like they can, which often is people online who they don't know. Because yeah, it's always easier to attack someone you don't have to see face to face and you're never probably going to meet ever in your life. Um, and yeah, that saying like misery loves company, it's true. Like, people don't like to see other people who are happy with themselves and sharing what they love. They don't like to see people who are fully honest about who they are, who embrace everything about themselves, even the weird things, even their flaws. Like, they embrace who they are wholeheartedly as a person. And they are fine being their authentic selves. They are fine uh, presenting themselves to the world as they are. That's a concept that I think a lot of people have a hard time digesting because, like I said earlier in the video, like we are kind of conditioned to be social. We are conditioned to like pick out things that are like strange or bizarre and like ostracize them. And so when you see somebody who instead of like bending themselves to fit the crowd, and instead of like allowing themselves to be pushed off to the side, decides to say like, no, I'm here. This is who I am, and this is who I'm always going to be. And I'm not afraid to be that person. That's very scary for, I think, a lot of people, and I understand that. I understand that it is scary to be authentic. Authenticity is scary. You're to invite people in, especially online people who you don't know, to see you as you are. Yeah, that's scary. It's terrifying. You don't, it's like that meme, like, do not perceive me. Like, yeah, a lot of you don't want to be perceived a lot of times. I get it. It's uncomfortable. People might misinterpret who you are, what you're saying. Like, you just have to understand that, like, you're never going to please 100% of people. You're going to run into people who just are going to see bad in whatever you do, no matter how you try to phrase things or how you try to like change. That's inevitable. But I think like being honest with yourself is very refreshing. And I think it honestly leads to just like you're living a more fulfilling life when you're not so worried about like how you appear to other people, when you're not so scared to just like come out and be like, yes, I like, I don't know, even though this is like so popular now, anime in general. I know now it's like nobody cares if you watch anime anymore. But back in the like early 2000s, like late 90s even, um, yeah, it was one of those things where it's like, I don't want people to know maybe I watch anime. I don't want people to know. It's just like, just be you, fam. Like you can't live your life trying to please other people. And I get that it's scary. Like, trust me, it is. It's easier to put on a facade or a persona and like pretend to be somebody you're not. easier in the short term, but I think in the long term, like in the long run, when you're like spending so long pretending to be somebody else, like you're gonna get to the point where it's just like this is so exhausting. Um, because people, yes, people want to be liked, but I feel like at what cost? Is changing yourself to appeal to others really like the end all be all? I feel like it's a losing battle because, like I said a moment ago, like you're never going to be able to please everybody. There's always going to be somebody that finds you weird or cringe for some reason, no matter how, like unoffensive you try to be or how, like, I don't know, socially acceptable you try to be. There's always going to be somebody that has a problem with it. So why even try to like keep up with like these ever changing like societal trends? Like just be who you are. Um, so yeah, I think for me, what I've come to understand like cringe for me is really just being like unashamed and joyful, like being unafraid to find joy in things, being unafraid to talk about things that you like, no matter how niche or strange they might be. And I'm not saying like don't have tact, of course. Like a lot of people think, like I know when people think cringe, sometimes they think about people who are like just like being disruptive with other people, like screaming and stuff. And it's like I'm not talking about people who are like those internet pranksters who like jumping on counters at McDonald's and screaming and pouring like McFlurries all over their face. Like that's cringe, but for a different reason because like now you're being a public nuisance. Like there's a difference between like this is who I am as a person and versus like I am putting on a performance. So I just want to get that out of the way. Like I'm not talking about people who are like doing stuff on purpose intentionally to get negative attention. Because again, that's putting on a performance, you're putting on an act, you're pretending. I'm talking about like this is who you are. You're not trying to impress anyone or piss anyone off. Like you're just being yourself. So yeah, for me, cringe is just people who present themselves authentically, and just are happy and unafraid to be joyful. And the best example I have is this, and I'm showing my age here, but for those of the phone video, the furries who go to I think it's like a Joann's or Michael's and they like buy foam to make their fursuits. And the whole time they're like in the car, they're like screaming foam and they're like having a good time. And yeah, people might say like, well, they're harassing people, but like they weren't really. They were like one, it was early 2000s, like that was kind of the humor of the time. But two, they weren't really bothering anybody. And yeah, they were just having a good time. They were having fun. You could tell like these two were enjoying themselves. They were enjoying their day, they were visiting friends and like seeing that now, like back then it's like you see those things and like everyone made fun of them and we're like, oh wow, what weirdos. But like looking at it now, I'm like, wow, I'm glad that they were able to like have that day that they just had fun and they were unashamed to be themselves. Um, so yeah, I think that's really the crux of it. Like if you want to build those authentic connections with like-minded people, people who share your interests and your hobbies. You cannot do that by being so constantly worried whether you're going to be perceived as cringy. You need to embrace who you are. You're never going to find your people, as we like to say, if you're so worried of being yourself. You're always going to attract people who don't understand you if you're not willing to be open. Um, and it's like, do you really want friends who are going to think you being excited about things are cringy, or going to think your hobbies are cringy, or interests are cringy, or the way you behave, your mannerisms are cringy? Do you really want to spend your whole life around people like that? I wouldn't. So, I mean, I wouldn't want to live like that. I'm sure most people wouldn't. So for me, the concept of embracing cringe, that's really what this video is about. Embracing who you are, embracing your cringy side. Because believe it or not, I don't care who you are, there is something about you that somebody else would say is cringe. You're not going to sit here and tell me that you're like, I don't know, SpongeBob in that normal episode where it's just like, you're completely normal and nothing about you is outside of whatever norm is. Like, no, everybody has something about them that somebody else out there would deem cringy. Um, so it's about embracing that part of yourself, acknowledging that, like, hey, yeah, I know a lot of people may not be into this. Or, hey, yeah, I know this is like a weird random thing that I do, but that's okay. Don't worry about it. Be unashamed about it. Embrace who you are fully as a full actualized human being. Like just embrace that about yourself. If you want to foster real community, um, then you need to be around people who share who they are, share what they know, stuff that you probably don't know. I've learned a lot about like random niche topics from people who are very interested in them. And that's really cool to me, that there's something that maybe I probably wouldn't have looked up myself, or that maybe I just, would never have come across. Like, I've been lucky enough to meet people who have shared knowledge and information with me that I'm like, wow, it makes me a more well-rounded person. Gives us a deeper connection because now I understand something that they're interested in, and like we have that connection now. And that's just it's really important as far as just connecting with other people and just understanding like the full spectrum of like humanity is to be okay with that people being cringe, being okay with yourself being cringe. You kind of just have to accept it. Um, and so, yeah, that's really most of what I want to talk about. And I guess just going back to the little shame piece, how cringe and shame are kind of like intertwined. Uh, the reason that this topic is really important to me, especially nowadays, is I've been doing a lot of work to unlearn shame. Because a lot of my life, I've been ashamed of like who I am, the things I enjoy for various reasons. Some of them societal, some of them personal. You know how it is. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of self work on like unlearning shame, embracing vulnerability, embracing openness and honesty, not being afraid to be who I am, sharing my interests with other people, um, regardless of whether or not that makes them think I'm weird or not. Being okay with being who I am, being different. So yeah, just like embracing cringe is really getting rid of shame to me. Embracing cringe is embracing vulnerability to me, understanding that you are who you are and like coming to terms with that and understanding that like that's okay to be cringe sometimes. Um, so yeah, that's really all I wanted to chat about. Again, I'm gonna have the links, or maybe if I can find an article, I'll link that below. But I'll have a link to Michael Threets, the librarian, his TikTok page. He's taking a break now for his mental health, which again, I highly am like I'm happy that he's doing that, especially with everything that he's been going through. But again, this is the kind of behavior that like just for being a little odd, just for being cringe. This is the behavior that people exhibit to people who they feel like for being outside of the social norm, they deserve to be bullied and treated like crap to the point where they have to leave their job for the sake of their mental health. Again, this man is a librarian. Like, I'm sorry, like that is so wild to me. Literally, all he does is talk about how great the library is and try to get people to read books. Like, maybe if you guys spent more time at the library reading, you'd have less time to be online worrying about who is cringe and who isn't. Maybe that's my other hot take for the end of this video. Maybe we should do more reading and reading of books and less reading of people who you don't know and never will know and are judging based on a 1 minute TikTok video. Please, can we all just get to the point where it's just cringe is okay? It's okay to be cringe. Not everything is for everybody. That's all I've got to say today. Uh, you got any comments? Leave them in the comment box. You got any suggestions? Feel free to leave them as well. Don't know when I'll be back for another video. As always, thanks for watching. Links below. Hope you guys have a good one. Goodbye.